Yesterday I had the opportunity of welcoming some of you and give them a tour of this wonderful place. I am, as I said, Loretta Bondì, and I am the president of Archivia, archives, libraries, and centers of documentation for women. Archivia is one of the 30 plus organizations that are a part of this Casa Internazionale delle Donne consortium. That's to say, we are organizations that work in different fields, but we are under the same roof, and we also are all hands, if you want, in the building of this enterprise. I was inspired actually by some of the presentations before me, because we do a lot of work in this building concerning education, training, and above all, empowerment. Those are key words for us too. For example, we do train social operators who are going to be active in countering violence against women. Big issue here in Italy, and it's a big issue in Europe as well. As you know, in 2014, the EGE conducted a study throughout the then 28 countries of the European Union, finding out that 1 out of 3 women in all countries of the Union had experienced violence at least once in their life, different kinds of violence. So for us, this training and education against violence against women is key. We also train people in a variety of other fields. For example, we train anti-trafficking operators. Human trafficking is a big issue here in Italy. A sort of lack of knowledge on how to establish themselves in the working world, in the professional world. And therefore we started thinking about this issue more systematically, and we realized that women in this country are very much and very badly in need of financial education. People who didn't know how to open a bank account, how to ask for a mortgage, how to set up a small enterprise. And we held, in fact, a few years ago, a course in financial education in partnership with the Bank of Italy, which is the national bank here in this country. And to our great surprise, we realized that there were women, of age groups and walks of life, professional women even, who really were very much demanding this kind of effort on our part. So we are hoping that soon we can resume this practice because we were sold out, but we were sold out in a few days. We were thinking of putting out promotional material in order to attract attention. No need, So anyway, we'll do that again. But to give you an idea of what happens in this building in terms of empowerment and education. By education, we also mean educating the general public and government officials and institutions in general, both national and international, about the work that needs to be done in order to address those imbalances that are true obstacles towards the empowerment of all women. We think that either we move together at different levels, at different ages from different countries, or we don't move at all. So anyway, back to this building. You are now, and I hope my short introduction has given you an idea that this place is a place of freedom for women and for the communities that we serve. It wasn't always like that. In fact, this building in the 16th, 17th century, when it was established, was a detention center for errant, so-called errant women. Women who didn't want to submit to forced marriages, women who didn't want to get locked in monasteries, women who didn't conform in any way, lesbians, crazy women, even poets. And so we find it really serendipitous that now this place is a place where we can debate our own issues, we can support one another in what we do, in our struggle for empowerment and equality. And you know, this happens every day. It happened even during lockdown. We managed to remain in communication with one another. We were in communications not only with our sort of more proximate community, but we managed to establish a really working network among us and all the other houses of women that are scattered throughout Italy, about 30 houses of women throughout this country. And by houses of women, we mean places where women exercise their powers of producing policy, not only centers against violence or other kind of empowerment engines. So it was very good because we managed to actually write down a document which is called the Assemblea della Magnolia. The magnolia is the big tree that you would see in the garden, which policy recommendations for our policymakers and for our interlocutors in the institutions of this country, which unfortunately we don't think will have much traction nowadays. As you know, Italy has a new government, and therefore we do fear that this particular kind of setting will not particularly conducive to women's rights. So instead of sitting and crying and whining about that, we have decided to fight back. And in fact, yesterday, for people who were there, you might have been stuck in traffic because we held a demonstration in the center of town. We are starting from the very beginning. Let's see what happens next. Some of the things that we do here, as I said, are the product of individual initiatives by our organization, the associations that are part of the consortium. And some others are, you know, inherent to the collective action that is developed here in this building. There are a few projects that I would like to mention for you. Today is the 29th, correct? So at the beginning of October, for the first time, what was once a traveling a hostel for traveling women on the second floor will become a refugee center. So we are opening the doors to Ukrainian women and their children in the hope that this will be just a testing ground for this facility to remain open for women coming not only from Ukraine but other countries where war or disempowerment are at work. So this is something we are very proud of because it was not a foregone conclusion. And we had to really study it and struggle for it, but in the end we managed to do it. Another project that might be of direct interest for you is the so-called social help desk. That is a place right here on the first floor where we interact with women who are experiencing situations of disempowerment and hard times, in other words. And they come from all walks of life. You might be surprised about the social composition, the social background of some of the women with whom we interact. I underscore the word interact because our approach is not top-down. We build our interaction with women who come to us, or we go to them in some cases, on an equal footing. We believe in relationships among women. We are feminists, not a dirty word. We are feminists, and that is our approach. Again, so it's not top-down and it's not even bottom-up. It's a relationship of peers based on the trust that we have in women and women have in us as women and as engines for empowerment, so to speak. So this is a very interesting experiment that we are doing. We are most of the times the first port of call for women in this town and elsewhere who are experiencing some kind of difficulties or who are simply curious about what's going on here. I say the first port of call because the services that the social help desk is actually offering are services that are offered specifically by each and every one of our organizations. They could be social services, employment services, health services, psychological services, a lot of times legal services. All these services are available in this building, and they are supplied by our organizations. It's really a very composite landscape here. When we are unable to offer these services, we know how to direct women to social services available in the community or in institutions with which we relate. So this is a second project that we have developed as the Casa Internazionale delle Donne in and of itself, all right? There is a third project that I'm very proud of because I was instrumental in this, which will be launched in mid-October again, is a web radio called Radiosa. Radiosa in Italian is a play on words, and it means both radiant, but also a composition of two segments, which mean radio and osa, that's to say dare, to challenge. And we realized that we really needed this way of communicating because of lockdown, quite frankly. We knew that we needed a vehicle to convey the alternative ways of coping and struggling that women who all of a sudden in this situation of lockdown and fear had been burdened with additional levels of care. And yet they were able to come up with very imaginative ways to cope. And the trick there was to put these women in touch so that they could help each other, not just self-help, but help each other even in communities and empower each other in that way. So we decided that that was time to empower ourselves and our interlocutors nationwide and even internationally through a vehicle that could be immediate in its communications and open to everybody. A fourth and last project that we have developed as the Casa is a study on the labor market in Italy. Sorry, not in Italy, in Rome. Many of you may be aware that in the statistics of the European Union, Italian women are way back in terms of equal pay, job opportunities, equal treatment, protection from harassment. And so we wanted to study more up close and in a very personal, relational way what was going on here. So we mobilized our resources here at the Casa to reach out different kinds of women, again coming from different walks of life, social backgrounds, locations in the city, to try to finding out what was working and what not working in their lives. We're going to publish soon the outcome of this study, but one thing I can tell you right away, no matter how burdened by the additional duties of care, the additional requirements on their time, all women with whom we talked figured that having a job and having financial independence was crucial to their life. whether it was already achieved and they wanted to maintain it in, among figures of raising unemployment and exclusion of women, or were searching for a job. I mean, this is not, you might think this is a no-brainer, I mean, obviously, but it's not that obvious, because a lot of women in this country had given up in their attempts to finding a qualifying job. So this was very important to us, and again, soon we'll be able to publish the results of this study, and hopefully we'll be also able to translate it. What can I add? Yes, there was a question yesterday that was very interesting. Some of your colleagues were asking us, how do we finance our operations? Well, each and every organization in this building has its own sources of financing, which are mainly, in this country, for how philanthropy is structured, are mainly government sources. So they participate and win public tenders, they respond to call for proposals, but mostly the Casa itself traditionally has been able to support its operations with, with the mixed results through self-financing. So we didn't have many sources of income. We have the cafeteria here that was supposed to provide sufficient income for us to support our initiatives. That turned out not to be the case, because we can't advertise it as a restaurant outside. So we are in this paradox. We had the hostel before it became a refugee center, but again, in order to make it really financially viable, we should have increased the number of beds, and we couldn't do that because this building, of course, is well protected by laws. So it's a catch-22 situation in which a lot of organizations like ourselves, women's organizations, but also other NGOs are finding themselves. So we're more and more pursuing the avenue of responding to tenders from government institutions, making sure that we maintain our full independence on the implementation and conception of projects. And just recently, we also reached out to private philanthropy. So, and we managed to secure a couple of grants that in fact enabled us to create, for example, the radio. Wow. No,